See what happens with this. Okay, here we go. So, okay, is this recording? It says it's recording. Great, fantastic. All right, here we go. Welcome to the Famous Musicians Podcast. I believe this will be season 5, episode 4. If I get the turnaround time right, I'm experimenting and I'm trying a different format where I feel like with a lot of podcasts, there's people are listening because not necessarily so much of the subject matter, but because of the sort of the organic chemistry between people talking about topics. It might not even be a topic you're interested in, but you just love you're sort of getting a little sampler size of that rapport, which is in such short supply, especially in quarantine, because it's harder for people to connect or whatever. So I'm trying a new thing where it's just talking, and to abandon the formality of an interview and just take the fun of just talking to someone you enjoy talking to, and then just giving it to the masses of the 6 people that listen. So here I am with Matthew Koraus, and I think officially I'm saying we should the topic like a improv sketch comedy. I'll say the suggestion from the audience is improvisation. Whether we derail from that or that, I think that's just a starting point, and we'll just see where this goes.
Sounds good. Well, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on, Joe.
Absolutely. So thinking about improvisation, I was obviously thinking about the pamphlet you had at that AGO that I attended, and you won competitions and all this business. Do you think that I feel that the organ has greater capabilities than the piano for really freeform improvisation, but is really the only limits your imagination, in that you can argue that no, I mean, Franz Liszt could have done an interesting improvisation on the piano, and he could have done it on an organ, and the limits are only your mind, basically.
Yeah, I firmly believe that every instrumentalist and vocalist should have some experience with improvisation.
Yeah.
And especially keyboard players, pianists, organists, any at all.
Yeah.
Should regularly improvise. And one of the things that really inspired me, and I really wish I remembered his name or could get in touch with him at some point, but there was I'm sure if I looked it up, if I really researched it, I could find this person's name, but there was a theory conference, a music theory conference held at Hofstra, where I did my undergraduate work.
Right.
I guess it was 2006 or 7.
Okay.
There was a pianist who came in to present on improvisation in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And, he improvised a complete sonata allegro movements just there on the spot for the class that he was teaching.
Yeah.
Like it was nothing, and it was on the piano, and it was just fully conceived in terms of the thematic content, the harmony, and the expression, and it was just like a carnival of sound right there, just fully improvised. So again, I improvise mostly on the organ, as that's my main instruments for my work at the church, but it was that improvisation by a pianist in a classroom that was a big formative factor there in setting this interest off in me.
Right. Do you find doing a lot of improvisation that what helps you to kind of deepen that appreciation and an ability to do it is structures and restrictions, saying like that? Because like, would you find it tremendously boring if you said, well, I'm going to improvise for the rest of my life, but starting now, I'm never going to say it's a takata or it's a sonata. I'm just going to, everything is free. You know what I mean? Like, is there something to be said for the beauty of putting form on it and saying, listen, we're going to have an A section. We're going to come back to some version of that A section.
Right. Even if you start out saying what comes out, right? And you actively decide to not have a plan, right? Something will materialize, and there will be an A section regardless of you're deciding on it or not. To the listener, something's going to come across. Now, how rigid that A section or how well formed it is, how identifiable it will be if you return to it later. That's certainly under your control, and you can decide on that. And I definitely find it more interesting to set parameters and say, okay, well, this will be, an aria followed by a fugue, right? Something like that, or this really will be a sonata with two competing thematic ideas, or and setting that goal from the start just I find that I get more enjoyment out of it. But yeah, there are some days that I just sit down and say, okay, the theme is be not afraid.
Yeah.
at a funeral, and all right, what can we do differently with be not afraid today? And without really, sometimes the guiding factor is, what haven't I done with this already?
Right. Yeah, you have a lot of funerals back to back. You have the same selections. It's like you've done On Eagle's Wings in so many different ways already. It's not gonna. It's got to be 7/8 to every note instance of the canis firms or whatever. Now, that is sort of like the dark matter of the universe. The hush hush. We don't talk about it because talking about it admits your own lack of ability, or maybe that's just me projecting. But improvising fugues. So
okay.
Can you're able to do that more or less?
Yeah, no, I mean, once you've got the exposition down,
okay,
the rest is pretty straightforward. It's just convincing the audience with an exposition, right? You set up the subject, you have a clear idea of what the subject is, you repeat it with an answer, right? And then you have a choice. Is it going to be a tonally adjusted answer? If it's a modulating subject, it has to be a tonally adjusted answer. Right. But then improvised fugues don't necessarily have to have a regular counter subject. Again, I'm not sure all of your listeners are familiar with those terms, but a regular counter subject means the thing that comes after the subject in the first voice.
Right.
Whether or not that repeats consistently.
You have options. It doesn't have to be this perfect canonical thing until you get to the episodic material.
Bach in his composed fugues doesn't always have a regular counter subject, and it's certainly easier to improvise a fugue without a regular counter subject.
Right.
A fugue is not a canon. A canon can be fugue-like, right? But it's not always canonic. So for sure, there's, if you're talking about, a non-regular, an irregular counter subject, it becomes a lot easier. And I improvise fugues pretty much every mass. Find a way to put something in that's a fugue-like or fugato or a complete fugue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the most daunting aspect of that is the integrity of your mind, that you would have enough of a complete fidelity of a remembrance of the subject that you trust yourself to be able to even play a short bit of it in canon against itself, is what I think is what's so scary about it.
Yep. Again, that all goes hand in hand with just studying fugues and playing fugues.
Yeah.
And writing it some out yourself. And it doesn't even have to be the whole fugue. It's just that exposition. Getting that exposition in hand is what really sets the ball rolling.
Yeah, you dipped your toe in the water by then. Yeah.
The things like augmentation or retrograde and stuff like that. It's said that, yes, great composers like Bach would perform fugues with retrograde inversion all the time, improvise and whatnot. And I think I've done that with some subjects here and there, but that's not the go-to, expressive tool, I'd say, in my fugal improvisation style.
Well, the other thing too is to say, I mean, I think
augmentation. I should take that back. Augmentation is big. Augmentation is a good signal that this is the end. Here's the subject in the pedal twice as long. The pedal being the bass register of the organ instrument.
And what was the other thing I was thinking of? When you're doing that, there's an assumption, I think, I don't know if this is true for other people, but for me, you say, I'm going to improvise a fugue that is going to sound Baroque. But obviously there are fugues that are written in a classical or romantic idiom as well, right? I mean, it's
right.
It's like, yeah.
And again, the style, I'm talking about fugues without respect to specific style period, and very often will find myself, if it's a romantic hymn, improvising with all those chromatic elements that you'd expect in a romantic piece of music, for sure.
Okay, and now the other things which I think are pretty interesting as well is I'm starting to dip my toe and get into this stuff as well with the Lutheran church job I'm at, where there's more of an emphasis placed on having sort of very sophisticated intros, which are the length of the entire like verse and hymn, and you really going out of your way to say like, oh, if this verse talks about Jesus dragging the cross, and the other one talks about Jesus's resurrection, there should be different harmonies, there should be different writing to reflect that. And that's even stressed in for congregational singing. They're like, yeah, no, you should just be able to just churn that out. And which I think I'm slowly getting more and more adept at it. But when I go back to, to take a funeral somewhere at a Catholic church, the old opponents still rear their head, which is like, the temptation to play on eagle's wings and be not afraid as they're written. Do you find ways to sort of, make it fresh and new for you, while at the same time not completely confusing the cantor and the congregation, but making something which is sort of musically satisfying out of like the 4 or 5 most common hymns you will always have?
Yeah, in terms of those more contemporary hymns, or the post-Vatican II style, right, that is prevalent in most places, most parishes, I would say that I think one thing I've said before is that because their accompaniments are so bare bones and clearly meant for the piano or the guitar, rendering those convincingly on the organ is a good exercise in terms of opening up to improvisation, and definitely something else that was formative for me in moving along with improvisation. So
right,
in terms of changing those accompaniments up, yeah, sometimes for different occasions, a different introduction, a different harmony on a certain chord, a different texture. Just playing Eagle's Wings this morning, again, there's a lot of harmony that I change around in that to the harmony of the verse on Eagle's Wings is actually interesting enough, moving from that F sharp minor chord to the F major chord. But again, so the voice leading there in the original is not, I make some changes.
It's a little blocky.
I enjoy changing up the voice leading and adding in some other embellishing chords there to between that F sharp to sometimes that tritone relationship between B minor in there. Then right.
Mm-hmm.
A few other things in there too. I don't know if any of that's actually going to sound well with my microphone here and Zoom mangling it, but
yeah, well, it's like the lecture recital without the recital, but it's enough that I think they'll get the gist of what you're saying. Right. But now what's the other aspect of that is, okay, so when you're doing that, is the goal that you want to have the David Wilcox intro and outro, or is the goal that I'm sort of fulfilling what it should have been and making it more complete, this Eagle's Wings? So I'm getting an idea of what the composer wanted, and I'm sort of making it more what it should have been if it was ported to the organ, so much as I'm putting my stamp on it. This is the Franz Liszt version of On Eagle's Wings. Or is it alternate? Does it depend on the day?
I wouldn't say it's either one definitively.
Okay.
I'm sure that I'm adding more than the composer intended. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I wouldn't say that's I would hope that it's something that the composer wouldn't disagree with. I would hope it's something that the composer might agree with, but it's more than was originally on the page. I don't think it's taking it too far afield of the original intent, but yeah, it's definitely more than was written early.
For sure. Now, and the other thing too is approaching like Catholic or Christian rock that sometimes will be. So I was someone asked me to cover it was like it wasn't Hillsong, but it was some kind of a Christian rock thing. It was and the vocal line was just completely syncopated, and it was virtually indistinguishable from a vocal line you might see on like a Miley Cyrus pop anthem, but all the words were changed to reflect a person's personal relationship with Jesus. And in that music that I got, the melody was doubled the entire way. And if you were presented with that, would you say, generally speaking, is there ever a good time to, I'm trying to think like contextually, like something seemed, I guess it was wrong in that case to have the melody completely doubled by the piano, because something about it in certain instances suggests a cowardice that like you're too afraid to simply let the accompanying material be the accompanying material.
Was there really a separate vocal line and a separate piano accompaniment where the melody was printed twice, or was the melody just notated on
the first thing?
Yeah, there was a separate. Okay.
Yeah. Because I think part of it was I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember I think if I had the time to do it over again, what would probably have made more sense, especially accompanying myself on an organ, would be to approach it like a Dido's Lament and figure out, like, think of it like a figured bass and go, okay, well, this is basically just an E7 chord, and sort of play these sort of sustained whole note chords against the syncopated rhythm, and let the interest be the harmonic content in the organ, and let the voice do all of the rhythmic. Just keep it, because it would be more interesting is the juxtaposition between the sustained chords and the syncopation in the vocal line. Anyway.
No, I mean, I could, yeah. In terms of adapting pieces like that, there's any number of things that you could do. I'm guessing it was something like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. That kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily need to double the vocal line in the organ for that.
Right.
For sure.
Right. Just
other sorts of things that you can do to keep rhythmic interest in the organ, but still keep sustain. Again, you've got the two hands and the pedal, so one can be sustaining, one can be adding some subdivision.
Right. Okay, so we got that. What was I thinking of? What am I thinking of? Fugues. What are you thinking about? I'm asking all the questions.
What am I thinking about?
What do you want to talk about that's sort of related to this?
I mean, I've been blessed to be able to still be making music at this time during the pandemic. It's just been a wild ride for sure. And it's crazy to think that there are so many, professional musicians that can't do anything other than, do something from their apartments,
right?
Some kind of virtual presentation. But, thankfully, the churches have been open, and there haven't been any issues to report in terms of church attendance causing spread, at least at the church that I'm working at. And,
right.
It's a way to make music in public, and I love the purpose of making music in church, and really thankful that I still have that opportunity, even though all the singing is greatly reduced and everything else. But going up there definitely gives structure to days and weeks that otherwise for most other people right now is just the same day over and over again.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we even had we haven't had choirs, right, because of the restrictions, but we do have one solo singer at each mass, a cantor, and I've got them behind a plexiglass shield, and they're around the corner, the side of the pipework, so they're as far from me as possible, but they're also wearing a mask with the plexiglass shield, and they're also at a distance from the congregation up in the loft. So I think it's as good as it's going to get in terms of making that aspect of it work. We brought in a string quartet for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and was busy writing a lot of arrangements there, and that was fun. And it was so nice to hear live strings in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was
We
different. It was just
brass quartet again with the COVID concerns and the choir, but string
yeah.
quartet, and they did a really nice job, and hope to have them back for Easter and things like that. But it's so nice to hear live strings in person in the middle of all this.
Well, for sure. And then obviously, you're very comfortable composing stuff, and I'm sure you can write some really amazing stuff for string quartets. I was thinking about this though, in particular string quartets, because I feel like I have a sort of affinity for them. Are you ever tempted with you have a prelude and you say, okay, well, I got to play for a half hour, say, for instance, not okay. Would you say, okay, juxtaposing it with this sort of florid arrangement of Hark the Herald Angels Sing for string quartet, I'll throw in like a Dostignani second movement of a quartet or something like that in there to kind of sort of in the same key, and it kind of works, but it's really just it's just classical music. We just find an excuse to just throw it in there.
Yeah, for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I would say I stuck to seasonal music, but again,
Right.
nice chorale based pieces, arrangements of Bach chorales and things like that.
Oh no, yeah, okay, that's good.
The In Dulce Jubilo, the organ double canon piece, arranged that for the strings to participate as well. And then there was a Praetorius Nun Lob, Mein Seele der Herren, Praise the Lord, my soul. Nice chorale-based piece that devolves. It turns into a ground bass, repeating the last phrase over and over in a series of variations. Very
That's fun.
C major flourish. So so there were definitely some serious compositions.
Right.
And I arranged that Ding Dong Merrily on High, which is actually a French dancing tune. It first appeared in a what's the term? I don't want to butcher the French, but there was a manual for the physical steps of dancing in the 16th or 17th century, and that's where the tune first appeared as a dancing tune. So arranged it at a faster tempo with more early music stylings for the string quartet, and worked out really nicely. Yeah.
The Ding Dong Merrily on High, with the sort of the eighth note in the right hand side, is that Rudder? Is that his version of it?
I played that before. That's nice too.
Yeah, I think it's right. Yeah. That's fun. That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So again, it was just so nice to hear live strings and to work with live strings, and I see things improving this year, and maybe we'll have choirs for Christmas at the end of the year. Really hope for that. But
what was it? How are you with delay? Because you have to do it even more now because of COVID and stuff.
Delay meaning sound delay from one side of the church to the other.
Exactly.
We actually did have the strings up in the loft. Again, we have a pretty large loft at the church where I work, but put them over to the rightmost corner there.
Okay, good.
And I was at the center, and Cantor was at the leftmost corner. So we're all pretty spread out. So it wasn't too much of a delay issue with that. But again, with anything else, with practice, delay becomes less of an issue.
Right. Yeah.
That's all.
Right. Okay, so we got that. Improvisation, improvising fugues, allegro. Oh, okay. I saw a YouTube video the other day of a gentleman on the organ playing a piece someone else wrote. Actually, it wasn't him improvising, but it was the title was Takata on, I think it was like Ye Sons and Daughters or whatever. And I heard, and I realized I know this type of piece before. I've never really played a lot of it, but there was these sort of running sextuplets in the left and right hands, and then the theme and augmentation was in the pedals and the bass. Is that a thing? Is that called that's the takata treatment or something like that? Like, what is, because I hear that all the time, where it's just like some kind of fast thing happening in the manuals to decorate the pedals.
Yeah, a takata doesn't have to be that. I mean, there's plenty of pieces that are called takata that don't do that. But
Right.
again, that's takata modeled after the famous Vidor toccata from the Fifth Symphony, and
Right.
it's an appealing style, and it's very easy to improvise in.
Right.
So,
Well, I guess like doing it in the heat of the moment. What's difficult about it is adjusting, like the saying, okay, was this going to be an E7 chord? Is it going to be an E7, whatever, and the counterpoint between the where the voice leading of the chords are arpeggiating with the bass. I guess technically you can say there's some difficulty there, but okay, yeah, I was curious because I hear that and yeah, okay, so that's what some people would.
yeah, again, the rate of harmonic change is usually pretty slow with those, even though it's rapid, figuration.
Right.
So the chords are changing, at a slower rate than the figuration. So again,
Right.
that's a pretty nice postlude style. You apply that to any tune.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then what the before I let you go here, I was thinking of okay, wait, okay. You have that. What was I thinking of? Oh, so close. Completely slipped my head, but it was something with figurations and improvising. It is not going to come to me. I'll have to email it to
Not
you when I think.
takata.
Yeah, it was something. It was something with yeah, figurations. Oh, the speed at which you're playing it, right? It sort of compensates because it's the texture is so fast that you as the listener don't realize that the harmonic motion is actually much slower because you just hear the fast notes. And what did
Right.
that? Yeah, what did that remind me of? That remind me of something. So what? I don't know. I'm completely spacing out.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, a lot of people, just listening to the average pop tune or a rock piece, think, oh wow, that's really fast. The guitar is just wailing away, but the chord is changing like once a measure, once every two measures.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
that this is something I thought of before. But I want to ask you. So Messiaen, here's some bird calls. He's like, want to make some music, kind of sounds like bird calls. Technically, we could say, oh, it's modern music, doesn't sound like London Bridge is falling down. It's too crazy. But the temptation, right, is you go, okay, what doesn't make sense? Serial music. So we're just going to be like, we're going to take this and we're just going to put it in that box. But it's not really that, right? Because serial music is based upon the serial system. So just because he felt that it was more true to form to have an impression of bird calls that didn't seem to necessarily obey tonality doesn't mean that he's the same thing or akin to like Schoenberg or Webern, right?
Well, again, the bird calls weren't the only thing that he did. I'm not a Messiaen scholar, but have played some of his organ pieces for sure, and
Yeah.
he's well known for his modes of limited transposition. So it was definitely a scalar structure that he had in mind, right? That and it gives his harmony a very unified sound.
Yeah.
Right? So in place of serialism, right? These modes of limited transposition,
Right.
exotic scales that are unique to his music, and there are actually organists who are very well versed in those modes as well, and improvise in that style on a regular basis with integrity. I mean, I would say if I I can approximate something that sounds like that, but I'm not thinking with those modes of limited transposition like I do with just major minor scales, whole tone, octatonic, things like that, the common practice scales. But there are folks that really are, that's just a memory in their fingers. Those scales are memory in their fingers, and they can just summon that at any time.
And then you talk about the Giants of Senselpeace and Dupre and all those guys. Is that, like, I guess you call it French Impressionism? I guess is that impressionistic organ improvisations? This like kind of modal. There's a lot of parallel motion, and it has the continuity of a Debussy prelude, which is sort of like, this sounds cool, and now we're going to go to this section, which kind of sounds cool, and everything's sort of free. And Is that what like how do you classify that or think of that? Do you think of that as an extension of like, is this church modes plus, or is it something more than that? Or
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot at play. Again, it's in terms of construction, like modular construction in form, right? New ideas in form that aren't necessarily derived from the past, but
right,
uh, and well, yes, there's definitely use of modes and breaking free of common practice tonality with things like planing, which looks like organum. Yes, those parallel chords and things like that,
right,
just to eliminate the sense that any one thing has to resolve to this, or any one thing has a direction that is inevitable. And yes, and it gives that music a sense of weightlessness or freedom that
right.
is really attractive for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, I don't want to keep you for a million years, but
No worries. No, this
yeah,
is fun.
awesome.
I wanted to say, I don't know if your listeners are also church musicians, but
Some of them.
right before the pandemic, I had another piece that was accepted for publication by OCP.
Yeah.
Um, it's actually an anthem for four voices. If you love me, if you love,
Okay.
it's not. It's the text that you would associate with the Tallis anthem,
Right.
but again, slightly different translation, and yeah, completely original music. No tunes borrowed, no hymn tunes or anything like that. Just a straight up anthem in more modern style, so to speak. And it's published by OCP. It's on their website now. So if you love me, Matthew Koraus, search on OCP's website. Not sure if it's made it to a physical print run yet, but it's up there for e-purchase.
Fabulous. And that's intended to you rehearse it with your choir and the choir does it, or is like this is for the congregation en masse?
It's just a choral anthem. It's a choral anthem.
Nice.
Yes.
Sweet.
So
Okay. This concludes the podcast part. Thank you for listening. And I'll stay on if you wanted to keep talking, whatever. But I'll be 1 second here. Here we go. I'm gonna stop it.